Welcome, y'all. We're getting back at this in the big year of 2026. We'll see how timely everybody else can be, but just out of curiosity, how many of you had already heard about this decision down in Florida? Just for those that are on the camera, give me a show of hands. Anybody hear of it already? No. All right. Well, I think it's an important one for us. Well, it's January 20th, another Hot Topic Tuesday, and that's what we want to talk about today, is that there was a Florida buyer who has been ordered to pay $24,000 because they had a breach of their exclusive broker agreement with a Florida broker. So, on here I put, what are the implications? It's not necessarily implications, but just what's really going to happen. So let's talk an overview of what we've got with our exclusive buyer broker agreement. Okay. And we'll kind of keep it specific yet somewhat general to the real estate industry. So here's what we know. The exclusive representation is an agreement to ensure that the broker is exclusively representing the buyer's interest during this real estate transaction. The buyer knows it. We know it. It outlines commitment that the buyer's committed to work only with, in our case, a designated broker in a designated brokerage. So it's really allowing us to key in, focus on the property search, negotiations, and so on. And of course, there's the accountability that comes with it. So we are accountable. We're talking really the fiduciary responsibilities that come along with creating an agency relationship. Along with that, it's also that we get paid our compensation. It's protected because we have this agreement. So what are the key things that we always know? Now, again, we've got our agreement. Everything's covered as long as we complete it correctly and we cover it properly with the buyer. But we've got our exclusive period. We've got our compensation. We've got our duties that are defined that we owe the buyer that's in that agreement. Now, I'm just out of curiosity, how long are we putting down for the period that the buyer broker agreement would carry? Is it 180 days? Is it 90 days? Is it less? What is everybody doing as far as the number of days that they put down for the length of the buyer broker agreement?
Isn't it typically up to the buyer?
Well, it's kind of up to the buyer because it is an agreement between us and the buyer. But let me rephrase it.
6 months?
What would you want? So, Curtis, 6 months. Harry, you're right there. Good to see you, by the way, my friend. Harry, what have you
You,
always done?
it varies with the customer.
That's a pretty solid answer. Brenda, can I impose upon you to throw your thoughts, your experience?
6 months to a year. And it really
Okay.
depends on the client, how difficult is it going to be to find a home of their desire and in what location, because the market is going to kind of determine how long that might take.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw some thoughts out and say that I absolutely agree with all of you. So we're somewhere between 30 days and a year. What's the right answer? Probably best in regards to what Brenda and Harry said, which is what's the scoop with the, I'm going to do the air quotes, buyer. Okay. Uh, let's throw out what what qualifies a prospect to be called a buyer.
Ready,
How
willing,
many
and able.
days? And say it again, Holly.
Ready, willing, and able.
I like that. Um, Ready to buy, willing to buy, able to buy. So if they're ready to buy, I'm so glad you put it that way. How long will it take them to find a home?
Just depends on what they're looking for. I mean, I've had a client for like 5 years and they still haven't found a property yet.
So here's the question. And Holly, you nailed it. You really did. What's ready mean? Find me the
Pre-approved,
house,
pre-approved,
pre-approved. So there's
money in the
able,
bank.
right? So, guys, readiness, doesn't it deal with time? Readiness is I'm ready to buy. I am willing to buy and I'm able to buy. How long would it take me to find the house I want to buy if I'm truly ready, willing, and able? I'll qualify it.
As soon as you put in an offer?
Um, how long will it take me to find the home
Oh,
to get
sorry.
them to
Okay.
put the offer on? Because here's where it would make a difference. I would tell you that in a great market, meaning there's inventory, my buyer representation agreements are 30 days or less. I'll explain why. In what we've been going through, I'm 60 days. And Brenda, you kind of alluded to it. I might have to put in 4 or 5 offers with the markets that we've experienced. So it's not that they're not making good, reasonable offers. It's not that they're over picky. It's not that they're not really ready. They're ready. It just took that long to be able to find a home that they could actually purchase. And there are some selective buyers. I just closed on one that we worked together for a year and a half, and it took 5 offers, and they were making great offers. So it really does depend upon the market. Here's the reason I like to see right now 60 days. If I say I'm going to sign a buyer representation agreement for 1 year, what indication did I just give them about buying a house?
They have up to a year.
Yeah, gee, this could take a year. Don't worry, you've got time. We've got a year. So I don't want to give that implication. I want to give them that, well, based upon what you've told me, we should be able to find you a home in 30 days or less. So consider that as we're going along. I call it a minor tangent, but I think it's important that we take a look at how long do we do that, and if we go a long time, what are we actually doing? I will throw this out. If I've got a buyer who's a seller also, they're not a seller, they're a buyer. The reason they're selling is because they're buying. But if they're a buyer and they need to sell, those agreements, I'm going to have both a listing contract and a buyer contract signed, and they are going to run concurrently. Therefore, I would have a 6-month listing. I would have a 6-month buyer contract. Okay. Our contracts, we know they outline our obligations to each other, us to the buyer and the buyer to us. We have a protection clause in there. We talk to them about our confidentiality, how we handle disputes, what's the penalty for breach. It's all outlined in our contract. Legal duties just says that buyer, you have to work exclusively with us as a brokerage. Disclose openly and truthfully during the terms of that contract. Ours is to make sure that we give our best effort, work diligently, provide accurate market data, obviously work in good faith throughout, and then outlining the consequences of being in breach of contract. So what are the details to this Florida case? Well, here's the bottom line. This broker and buyer each signed an exclusive buyer agreement. Broker lived up to their terms of the contract, doing market research, arranging for showing properties. And of course, here's what led up to this. The buyer bypassed this particular broker, went to another broker, and bought a house. Yeah. And this is why it's like, okay, so here comes the question. And I put this out in my promo this morning. Is the buyer agreement and the listing agreement for us that have been in the business for a while? Harry, how many years is it for you?
30 some.
Yeah, I'm at 38. We literally back in the day used to question whether or not a buyer agreement, if you've been in 95 or later, that's when buyer agreements really became in impact and pertinent to the real estate business. You question whether or not it was ever really worth the paper it was written on. Well, what they did undermined the contract, and there was the evidence. Obviously, you went and bought another house with somebody else. You were in breach of contract, and that's the way this broker took it and said, I'm going to file for my compensation. Now, obviously, we know it's a $24,000 compensation. That's worth pursuing. So this was not a court of law. It was an arbitration panel. So they ruled in favor of the broker and ordered the buyer to pay the $24,000 in damages for breach of contract. Now, I didn't look at the actual case to see, was it more? Was that what they were actually owed? But $24,000, I'm going to assume that that was the compensation that they were owed. So here's the key to this. It is now set a precedence that the exclusive broker agreement is viable. It's legally enforceable. Now here it says Florida law, but it's setting a precedence for all states under which they can rule. Financial risk for the buyer? You can't violate the terms of a contract. And that's obvious by the damages that have been awarded. I can tell you that we did this with another buyer. Brenda's familiar with it, where we actually pursued our compensation because the buyer went and bought a house from somebody else. We didn't get it to arbitration because the buyer was smart enough to settle with us. Now, we also had an attorney involved. Guess how much that cost? Right? So we didn't get our full comp. Now, we were awarded the full compensation. No, not awarded. We settled on a partial compensation and still had to give a third of it away to the attorney, but it was better than nothing. But again, that's one where Brenda and I were actually the managing brokers when we pursued this compensation. So Valerie's got a great question in the chat session here. Couldn't the broker file a lien on the property, much like a mechanic's lien, to get paid versus suing the buyer? Knowing it may be a number of years before property sells again, the broker could pay the agent and get paid in the future. Man, it's a good question, and I'm going to use my 38 years of experience. Could you do something like that? Yes. Would it be wise to do? I don't know. The other part that I would give out, would it be wise? I always play the middle in this. You got broker, you got agent. Would the broker pay out to the agent and then collect later on? No, wouldn't be a good decision because there's no guarantee of payment. There's just no guarantee of the payment until a court decision, or in this case, an arbitration panel, were to make a decision. There's no guarantee of payment. So I think, that's really what we've got to take a look at, and I'll really wrap up with it at the end of the presentation here. We have to take a look at risk to decide whether or not to even pursue it. I'll put it on hold for a bit just to be able to bring that back around. The key is we know that these agreements are enforceable. The settlement, when you consider that, our guarantee of payment previously used to be because it was in the MLS. Although the buyer signed a buyer representation agreement that said they would pay us, we never really got those signed because, well, we got them signed when we wrote an offer. Now we're having to get them signed before we even tour a property. The buyer knows in advance, you are paying me. And there's a couple of ways that we can make that happen. You can pay me directly, or we can build it into the purchase agreement and ask the buyer to give you the money to pay me. But with the settlement and having these agreements, and now it's buyer, here's what these turkeys are making you do. When I call them turkeys, attorneys. It's what they're making them do. Suing a buyer doesn't sound like a win for business reputation, as now the losing buyer has a lifetime of negative impressions to share with whoever listens. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with it. As a matter of fact, let's get into this part of it, the implications, because it is one implication. You've got to make a decision. It's got to be, is it worth pursuing? I believe last week I brought up one within our company where now it was only 0.5% and it wasn't the buyer's fault. As an agent and as an office, we decided not to pursue the 0.5%. Could have, would have been easy. But the implications of going after it and weighing it said, no, let's not worry about it. Contractually, we could have, but we did not. So here's what we know. The exclusive agreement's importance. The buyers need to recognize that they are legally binding. We need to make sure that they know and understand what they are signing. Okay? There's got to be the transparency, and this is where the open communication, the honesty, I call it the frankness of what they're signing and what they're doing. You have to cover the agreement so that we avoid the misunderstandings and actually have the trust. You don't want to start out on something where you're going to throw them something later on. Thorough contract review. It's kind of what I was just referring to. Cover the contract with the detail that is necessary. One of the things that if we have not been doing this over all these years, we should, is to have a buyer interview. We should be sitting down with the buyer up front, sharing what's going to happen, how this process works, how I get compensated, how we look at homes, how I earn my compensation. All of that needs to be done. And that's where we can review the contract in detail so that they know what to expect. But the bottom line becomes this, and this is where, Valerie, with your question, it comes up. We need to measure the risk. We need to measure that against the potential success, or is it probable success? How much is it? What's the size of the reward if we were successful? Is it worth our time and effort to pursue it? I don't know what that number is. Every situation is going to be different, but probably as a minimum, I could foresee that we're going to send the demand letter and see where it goes from there. But what is the risk versus the potential or probability of success? And what is going to be the size of the reward? All of that would go into whether or not, as a brokerage, we would pursue the compensation along with what Valerie has brought up. We have to make good business decisions. So are we entitled to it? Absolutely. And let me throw this out you because I've talked to this regarding being a buyer representation. Let's throw it on the other side. If a seller sold the house without you, would you pursue your compensation? I can tell you in the old days, if any seller ever did that, every agent wanted to go. Yeah, I hear it. You're smiling on that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll tell you what, seller. Oh, you go good. I'm getting my compensation. Well, what's the difference now with a buyer? Those two agreements are making each party responsible to pay their broker. In the end, that's the way we would have to see it. So, guys, I don't have anything else on this other than to go draft your agreements correctly, give yourself the proper amount of time, know what they say. I think everybody knows both agreements state that we suggest that they get legal counsel review. Now, 1% of them may do that, but it's on there. It also has the dispute and resolution timelines. It's on our agreements. Here's the conclusion to all of it. Knowing and respecting the exclusive buyer broker agreement is crucial. Fully understanding it, and I say us, fully understanding it is very, very important. I will share with you, I've recently recorded and have the exclusive buyer agency agreement on there. I think I've got that one uploaded. Let's say it's recorded. I believe it's on there. If it's not, let me know. I will get that one up and on there quickly. But it's regarding how you complete knowing and understanding the exclusive buyer agency agreement. What are the consequences of breaching the contract and the importance of the clear communication with the purchaser? That's what we really need to take care of. And what if you didn't? That sets a precedence that the buyers and sellers can get away. Ooh, wow, I didn't think about that, Deb. Yeah, Deb's making a good point here. What if we don't pursue it? Is that setting a precedence? It may set a precedence. It's not going to be found out the way that this one is, where it's a justification that the broker gets paid. Um, it would not be the first time that we've let someone slide. And again, that's really where it gets into. We have to weigh the risk against the potential or probability against the size of what the reward would be. You see, I mean, let me take it to ridiculous. If we were going or had the opportunity for $2,000 and an attorney's going to take a third of that, I don't have to keep going. Our time is worth more than what that loss would be. Okay. So that's really where that's going to take. So yeah, Deb, clearly we're setting a precedence,
Well,
but not one where it's going to be circulated and everybody's going to know. Matter of fact, you wouldn't even know about it, except unless if it was your deal. Yeah, go ahead,
no,
Deb.
no, but I had that thought in relationship to what that uh other person just shared a minute ago about, is it a good business decision? Because then you have a bad rep that you sue clients. On the other side of that is if you don't get it, then you'll get a rep of, well, choose not to pay them because they won't do anything about it. So that also can hurt your business.
Yeah, and it's hard for somebody to buy and us not to get compensated. It's truly this scenario where the buyer just decided to go somewhere else. They went to another agent because Well, let me ask you guys this question. All right. And instead of you, let's put it right in the chat, and you guys can put yes or no. So here's the question. Can a buyer fire us? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. There's okay. Come on, you guys. Commit. Oh, okay. Oh, oh. All right. Janice and Tom have the best answer. If you just said yes, the answer is yes, and I'll give with mutual agreement between all parties. So a buyer can't just go, you're fired, and then go work with Schmo over at some other company. Thanks, Jason. You're supposed to know that part of it. Gee, that wasn't part of the question. The answer would be no, unless you have mutual agreement. Let me show you what we've got with this. That would be here. And if we go to the very end of this agreement, you see what number 20 says? This agreement may be canceled. So the answer is yes, they can fire us if we agree to it. Can we fire them? Yes, if they agree to it. You see, it's a bilateral agreement. It took the buyer and us as the brokerage to enter that agreement. It takes us and that buyer to leave that agreement. So this is a very key part that I will tell you. I believe the general public does not know. And sellers have the same issue because they think all they got to do is write an email or call into the office and say, "Yeah, I'm done with you guys. I don't want to work with you anymore." Doesn't work that way. We need to know right at the end of both contracts. This is the buyer agency agreement. Let me show you the exclusive listing agreement. Number 37. So you get to make the decision as to whether or not you want to break the terms of this contract, but you do that with the benefit of the broker, the managing broker, I should say. Don't do it alone because you know what? I may screw up, but I know Harry has a great relationship with these people. So I take a referral fee and Harry saves the day. Okay? That way the company and we still make money. But it's a mutual release of the contract. It's not a, what's the word, singular decision.
Hey, Darwin.
Yes.
So what happens if in the seller's case, they just decide at some point during their listing agreement duration that, I'm done with these guys. I know I can't cancel this, but I'm just going to stop doing showings. I'm going to stop cooperating.
Now they're in breach of contract.
Okay.
And that goes back to advisory properly made seller acknowledged use current. So that's one of them. Basically making the home available is in here somewhere, but that's in here. So if they just suddenly stop saying no, you can't show the property, no, you can't, they decline all the showings, basically they're in breach of contract. And I'd have to
Okay.
go in here and I think it might be this one, but yeah, that would be the answer there. Let me check to see what we got in the comments here. Yeah. So here's the thing. John's making a great point because typically this is true. Um, Working with a buyer who doesn't want to work with us can get really, really difficult. You may want to release them, but here's the good news. Get compensated for the time period that you did it. How much have you put into it? Did you do marketing and advertising? Did you pay specific to this particular buyer? What's your time worth for the time that you've spent? So yeah, I give mutual consent most times unless I have tons of time invested and have written offers. And that's where you can negotiate. Sure, I'll let you out of the contract, but here's what I want. Okay? And that's a key part to what John put in here. How do agents explain why a buyer agency agreement is required? Oh, Terry, that's easy. Those stupid attorneys in the Department of Justice did this to you guys. This is not the requiring us. This is the federal government who came up with this settlement, requiring
Okay,
you, the
that's what I would.
consumer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm. Did they require it of us, or did they require it of the consumer? Both of us. But who did it really hurt more? The buyer. And that's why I'm saying, look, are you familiar with the settlement? And that's a lot of people are, and a lot of people aren't. And they say, well, listen, just know this, that the DOJ and a bunch of greedy, money-hungry attorneys got together, and instead of having a forced settlement or a forced court decision, it was agreed that they would make you guys have to sign contracts with us before we could even show you homes. That is the terms of the settlement. So as I put it, when I talk with a buyer, this is what these guys did to you. Before we could show you homes and we didn't have to worry about it. Now they're forcing you to sign contracts. I can even say, because by the way, if you don't sign the agreement, I can't work with you because I can't get paid. Because that's the only way, is because the buyer's agreeing to compensate us. Isn't the issue with short agreement is the buyer can go with someone else easier and sooner? The answer is yes. You have to keep getting them to recommit in writing, and the answer is yes. Do I have a buyer or do I have a prospect? So if I am newer, guys, I may take a longer contract. But that just means I may not be able to commit to the time where I need to go find real buyers and real sellers. If I keep spinning my wheels with prospects, somebody who's not really ready, do I want to put them under contract? That becomes the question. So the answer to that, guys, is yes. And I've actually told them when I've done 30-day contracts, it's, well, here. So, guys, you're going to notice the term of this contract is only 30 days. The reason for that is either I'm the wrong guy to help you find this, or you're not really ready. Either way, if we're just having some struggle and being able to find the right home, we just extend it out. Fair enough? But now I can get rid of them easier. Yes, they can get rid of me easier. That's the decision, and kind of what Brenda and Harry, with their experience, have told us. What do we need to do? You need to make that decision. Am I working with a buyer or am I working with a prospect? Do I want to tie up a prospect right now, or do I want to tie up a buyer? If I were coaching, I'd take more time into helping really grasp hold of that. But remember, the more time we're putting showing homes, the less time we have available to talk to people. Talking to people is how we make our money. If I'm tied up with one couple, constantly showing homes, and I was just, man, there was how many homes? He was over 100 homes that he showed somebody. Question is that a buyer or not? Or is it a prospect? Who are you going to put under contract? Do you want to put buyers under contract, or are you going to put everybody who's breathing under contract? You can spin a lot of wheels, and because all of a sudden you're a licensed home shower, and that's all you are. You're a tour guide. You can almost tell who came up with this decision because it says touring homes. Prior to touring homes, you must have an agreement. I don't want to be a home guide. I want to sell homes. Let's see. Well, on the listing side, they can decide not to sell. Yeah, so let me just read what John put in here. On the listing side, they can decide not to sell, and we can't force them, but they can't just decide to go with another broker and not cooperate. Pretty much true. The probably the biggest key that I would give you there, if somebody says we're not going to sell, we do not give an unconditional release. We give a conditional release. That conditional release is what binds them to us and prevents them from being able to list with somebody else. So if you've ever wondered what's the difference, that's it. Conditional says the terms of this agreement are still in place. We still have the exclusive right, and we've agreed to withdraw it from the market. That's basically what the conditional withdrawal is. But keep this in mind, if you don't want it expired on your record, the last day, do an unconditional withdrawal. Otherwise, the last day of the contract is a conditional withdrawal. It will show up as expired. Can you cover the agreement and open houses? Oh, Lori, you went there. Let me skip by that for a second. So you're saying shorter agreements are actually better until you figure if they're a buyer or a prospect. Yeah, that's kind of one way of looking at it, John. Yeah. The busier I get, probably the shorter my contracts are going to be. Because I need you to be a buyer and not a, well, if the right house shows up, I'll buy a home. So there's a number of things that goes into what's the length of this listing. How busy am I? How much time do I have? Setting the precedence as to you've got up to a year. By taking a 1-year agreement, you're kind of telling it, well, we've got up to 1 year. I'm going, well, you guys are serious. I might even say you guys are pretty serious. So you think we can find you a home in a couple of weeks here? I'll ask on a scale of 1 to 10. How serious are you about buying a home? Well, it's got to happen. I'm going to be homeless here in X amount of days. So all of those things I think go into it. What's the sincerity of that individual? Now, let me jump back then. Lori, I'm only going to hit it a little bit because this is always a bit of a can of worms. And I think what you're talking about is that let's say, let's see, is anybody? All right. Well, I'm just going to use Harry because he's right above you on my screen. Harry has a listing, and you two are in the same office. So you're both at Century 21 Professionals. Harry, sorry, I just moved you. And Lori comes to Harry and says, Harry, can I hold your house open? Is that the scenario you're looking at, Lori? Okay. Whom does Harry represent? Everyone says the seller. Whom does Lori represent?
Potential buyers?
Here, do this. Do this. Lori is going to hold open Harry's listing. They're in the same office. Harry is the designated agent of that seller. So, for simple sake, let's use the chat room and put S if you think it's the seller, or B if you think it's the buyer, or O if you think it's other. Wow. And this is why we always talk about agency. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Lori, so here becomes the question. Everybody can see what everybody's responses were there. Were you designated to represent Harry Seller?
I think I was forced to by being there holding the open house. It just
And
puts me there.
okay, so it puts you there. Does that, by being there in this scenario, does that automatically make Lori the seller's designated agent with Harry?
Contractually, no.
Hmm.
No.
Did you give then implications that you represent the seller?
I thought it would be implied because you are there
I like the way
holding
you
that
say
house
that.
open.
Um, yeah, and John's really alluded to it here twice, and he's spot on. Lori has no agency relationship with the seller until when?
Signatures?
Contract.
Yeah, basically we have to redisclose that Lori is now designated to represent this seller.
In
Now,
writing.
that's an option. That's an option. Lori could hold the house open, but now she does not represent the seller. What must she do with anyone who walks through that door before she tours the house with them?
He has to have them sign a buyer's agreement then.
Yep. The settlement, guys, it isn't law yet, but the settlement requires that they sign an agreement before you can tour the home with them. In which case, John, you got ahead of me. How long do you sign them up for? One day is fine. And what do you put for the scope of the search? That address. So if you use option B, where I'm not designated, you got to say, hi, buyer, before I'm allowed to let you tour the home, you have to sign this agreement. It simply says that I represent you today on the purchase of this home. And if you buy within 180 days, you're going to pay me. Can be done, but what might be the easiest way to be able to do business? To be designated as the seller's agent. What if they have an agent already? Technically, the agent should be there. Is it really going to matter? Nah. But what should you have? Proof that they have another agent. I want something. Just show me that you've got another agent.
Is
And
that
if they
Or,
required?
don't, you turn them away?
yeah. Well, will
What?
you sign a contract? I could put a stipulation in, right? I could say, well, here's a contract. You got to sign this, but it's void if you actually do have another agent already, which is like calling them a liar. Do you see why it might be just as easy to go in and say, hey, just designate me as a designated agent of the seller also? Then what happens if I get a buyer who wants to buy it? What's my agency relationship to the buyer? Hmm.
Are a
Ah,
buyer's agent, but would you be
are you a
considered
buyer?
a
So here,
dual agent?
it's coming in now. So we took the choice. Let me clarify, make sure everybody understood it. We took the choice, and Harry and the managing broker says, okay, let's make Lori the designated agent of the seller also. Whom does Lori represent? The
Seller.
The
seller.
seller.
And then a buyer walks in the door and says, I want to buy it. Is she the buyer's agent?
She can be.
I'm so proud of you.
Could you just make it like she represents the seller for that day only, and then afterwards she's released from that contract?
Yeah, but is she really?
Because
Or
if
will we be
agents,
farther ahead? So let's do this first. So now we know Lori represents the seller. A buyer walks in the door whom she doesn't know for a hill of beans. Everybody with me? They go, oh, Lori, we love this place. We want to buy it. Is Lori going to write up the offer? Yes, she is. And the first document that she has to pull out is Form K, agency disclosure. I'm doing Form K because somewhere along the line, Form K became the big word. It's like I've always heard it as agency disclosure, but Form K is one of the biggies out there. Form K is agency disclosure. And Lori, what do you check off?
I'm sorry, I've got a lot of noise. There's construction.
Okay,
I
no problem.
apologize.
No problem. So you're now going to pull out Form K agency disclosure. You know you represent the seller. The buyer says, I want to buy it. What do I check on the agency disclosure?
You would have to do dual agency.
So you're going to force the buyer to have representation then.
If I'm in there with them, yes.
Ah, could you not stay just representing Harry's seller because they're your seller too and not do dual agency?
But
I
if
don't know.
she was supporting them as the buy, if she was helping them buy the property, then she would be compensated through
But I'd
the,
have to remove myself from the prior contract. So that's a lot of stuff. Help.
Guys, this is why it's so much fun because I do this in such a way because I do want to make you think exactly the way that you guys are thinking. So let me bring clarification. If Harry held his own house open and this buyer walked in the door and said, "Hi, I want to buy this house," what would you recommend Harry doing? Should he represent the buyer or should he stay representing only the seller? Represent his seller. It's whom he already owes that fiduciary responsibility. So then I'm going to go, and Terry, I'm going to give it, well, yeah, but he's also working with the buyer. Well, working with the buyer, not working for the buyer. So could he represent the buyer? Yes. And then what would he have to do? Redisclose because he's now become a dual agent. So, as a reminder, the only way that we can have dual agency is when we actually represent both parties, the buyer and the seller, to a real estate transaction. So, in the case of Lori, where she was designated to represent the seller, she has the same choice as Harry did. Probably a little bit more difficult position. Go ahead, Terry.
when you are an agent hosting an open house for another agent in your office, is it an agreement between the two of you whether or not you are a designated agent? Or are you sometimes like, I'm just going to hold the open house for you so that when buyers come in, I can offer to be the buyer's agent? Is it just something you work out with that particular agent?
So the answer is very clearly you need to know. Am I designated or not? Because that changes how you allow people to walk through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, everybody hear this part of it. The company hasn't made a stance on this. They have left it up to the individual offices and the managing brokers. So you want to find out, how are we handling this within the office? And I'm just going to say, what I've given you are the two options. What we believe, in the simplest terms, and a little over a year ago when I had the T.W.I.R.E legal counsel on, it was clearly the easiest way of doing business and realistic is to be designated. From there, you have to make a decision. Now, here's what and I threw out that it's up to the individual offices and the managing broker, but I want to address what John's brought up here. And John, I wouldn't refer to it as a co-op percent. It's really what the company has, because remember, we're inside the company. And here becomes the key. When we take a listing, hopefully at 6%. And the seller, it says, directs, here, I'll read it. I don't want to pull it back up for you. Seller directs brokerage firm to offer a percentage of listing broke. So we already have it collected. However, if Harry had a difficult seller who would not listen to his consultation, right? You with me? And they said, I'm only going to give you 3%, and you are not to offer any compensation. The agent holding that open would have to get a contract signed with the buyer. You'd be forced to do it that way. So again, this is where, if we just break it down, that's a key. So she needs a, not really, John, because if I'm designated and there was full compensation, we're covered. Harry doesn't get the full 6%. Harry's going to share that. We know that's just what we do within the company, because it's not us as an agent, it's the brokerage. And the brokerage knows that if we got 6%, 3 is going to go to the agent who had it listed, and 3% is going to go to the agent who sold it. So we're covered because it's within the company. Now, if for some reason you went out or anyone allowed you to hold an open house for Mel's Realty, well, you'd better make sure you got yourself covered. Okay. But at that point, I can't foresee anybody. By the way, we don't do this. If there's somebody who says, hey, can I hold your listing open, and they're from some other company, we don't do that. They'd be a sub-agent, basically, is what we would be doing. We don't do that. Okay. So, that covers that part of it. But because it's within our brokerage, we know how we're going to cover it, unless, and this is where Harry would say, well, gee, Lori, you need to know, you're going to have to get buyer representation agreements because I've only got 3%. So there's no way that Harry is going to ensure that you get paid, because it's no longer the brokerage getting a full compensation. It is up to the buyer to sign that. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's why I went, oh, Lori, you brought it up.
Can I ask a strange question?
Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
So when I'm thinking that, like, in the future, when you're trying to count whether you have what listings you have, so he makes the other agent part of the transaction as a part as representing the seller.
Designates. Yep. Okay.
Now, does she get a point for being representative as the seller's agent then? Okay.
Nope. She gets nothing unless if she actually participates. Now, hey, I think we all basically have that understanding, but man, could somebody get stupid and go, well, gee, Harry, I'm now designated. I get half of your compensation too. Could somebody get stupid? Yeah. Well, then we'll fire him afterward. I mean, come on, give me a break. I
Don't be
designated you so you
stupid.
can make it simple and you can make it realistic. And I'm saying for the stupid person who would try this, it's like, I would hope that we don't have to go to, oh, by the way, you only get compensated if you sell it, and that's because I've got a full commission. Okay, so when I say that, Holly, that was not to you. That's the, oh, come on, you stupid agent who would claim part of Harry's commission on the listing side of it. No, that wouldn't work. Great question, actually. What else we got? Wow. All right. So, um, great stuff. I'm now looking and it's 12:56. This took about 30 minutes longer than I anticipated, but we'll blame that on Lori. And hey, I'll tell you what, it's a great question. In all of this, here's what I knew. We really broke into the aspect of talking agency, didn't we? Well, we always have to talk agency. I always put it as simple it is from my mind. Remember, I've been teaching this stuff really since 1995 when buyer agency became basically a requirement because of agency disclosure. So I've got a really good handle on it on top of being a Con Ed instructor and pre-licensed training instructor. So if guys, you ever got questions, you let me know. But when it comes to this scenario of the open house, talk to your managing broker and see what they want and how they're doing it within your office. All right. What other questions do we have? If you don't know, that's my 7-second count just to make sure that there are no questions. Guys, have a fantastic Tuesday. I can see some blue skies amongst white puffy clouds and really low temperatures today. Pick up the phone and go talk to people.
Thanks, Darwin. Appreciate
You
it.
got it, buddy. Harry, thanks for taking part today. I appreciate
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. You got it, guys.
Thank you.
Happy
You're
trails.
welcome, Terry. Have a great one, everybody.